Was anyone else hype off seeing that Tamari in this episode? I'm just saying, I was like, damn, yo, the year's done her some fine wine work. I ain't gonna lie. Now, this week's episode of Boruto, episode 3, it was one of the most anticipated episodes thus far for me. Again, if you've seen the spoiler video, then I knew what was gonna, for the most part, happen as far as, like, having a brief synopsis, and I knew it was gonna focus in on Metal Lee. I was a bit disappointed after watching this episode on one major thing, and that's the fact that we didn't really get any new information regarding Metal Lee's parents. I was hoping at the very least we would have seen maybe Rock Lee. Oh my gosh, I wanted to see some Rock Lee, bro. I wanted to see the taijutsu god up in here. We didn't get no Rock Lee, and then of course we didn't get any information on who his mom could be, because we're still like, yo, is it Tenten, is it not, what's going on? We didn't get either of those, and I was like, damn, Metal Lee, this was an episode about him, would have been a perfect time to explore something that the, fans really want to see. We want to fucking know who the fuck is this dude's parents. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty obvious that, Rock Lee is his dad. Who the fuck is the mom? We find out a bit more about his characterization, and maybe that's why they didn't really want to bring in the parents, because, this is about the new generation, the next generation. It's not about the past. It doesn't, necessarily matter. I mean, to a certain degree, obviously, you gotta learn from history so you don't repeat it, but it's more so just starting to develop and characterize these people. And Metal Lee, one of the big things, his quirk, again, is that he gets really nervous to the point where it cripples him from doing his best, because you see in the episode, this dude is fucking dope. Like, he could throw the shurikens like everybody else. He has some really great abilities. We don't necessarily know regarding his ninjutsu skills, although it did look like, which I was hyped, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about it in a second, that he could possibly open up the gates similar to Rock Lee. I don't know exactly how many gates he could open, maybe 3, maybe 5 or whatever, but it looked as though he could potentially open up the gates. Metal Lee is fucking dope. He was doing some big things. It took a shit ton of stuff to keep him down, but essentially it was kind of like, okay, his father couldn't do ninjutsu, genjutsu. My guy was kind of just shit at everything, and he just had to work really hard. This guy is like, oh, he gets really nervous to the point where he can't do shit. So nothing extravagant, but it was interesting enough to focus in on his character and find out a little bit more about him. I mean, I'm kind of curious what made him that way. Is it just that, hey, he gets shy? Is it because, to me, I see it as, when I'm watching the episode and I'm hearing more about the character, because he talks about going alone in the mountains and training in the mountains alone. I don't know why he's alone. That's another question that makes me think, like, why, if he has parents, Rock Lee and Tenten, again, seemingly, why would he be alone in the mountains? Maybe there's a possibility that he has that name and it's a pseudo name, and that's not actually really his name, and he looks up to Rock Lee, but those aren't actually his parents, and maybe his parents aren't around, because why else would he be in the mountains? But again, that would also explain why he has this nervous problem, because if he's always alone in the mountains training, he's never really been around people like that. So when he is around people and he thinks about it, oh shit, they're watching me, he gets nervous, opposed to just being in the mountains alone. He don't gotta worry about anybody watching him or him slipping up, because who the fuck cares? The only one that he's trying to impress right there is himself. So it makes sense why his character would be like that. But again, I'm like, why are you in the mountains alone? Did Rock Lee tell you, son, you gotta go to the mountains to be a cunt? No, that probably would have been Guy, but yeah. Then this episode plays around even more with Boruto's eye, which is something that's going to be huge later on in the story. Obviously, in episode 1, we saw Boruto with that fucking crazy eye while he was fighting that guy Kawaki, so it's gonna be a big deal, and I'm glad that they're building it up even from the beginning. Again, I'm still kind of wondering how they're gonna play it off leading into, the movie stuff and whatnot, because in the manga, to my knowledge, aside from the Boruto versus Kawaki stuff in the first couple pages of chapter 1, we haven't seen Boruto have that eye, so I don't get where they're gonna go. It seems as though there's a possibility that the anime and manga could be extremely different, with some small similarities in regards to, like, yeah, Boruto and Kawaki are gonna fight in the end, but maybe Kawaki could end up being a whole different person. Maybe the way Boruto gets that eye can be a whole different thing, because it seems as though the manga is more so being faithful towards the movie and its own continuity, and the anime is being faithful towards its own continuity itself, because it's like, yeah, the manga doesn't have Boruto with that eye yet, and Boruto already has this eye, and this episode yet again was demonstrating, which it seems as though whatever is going on, whatever jutsu, whoever's doing whatever, it seems possible that it's similar to something, if you've seen the series Magi, where if people fall into depravity, where they basically get, you know, just completely losing all hope and everything, and they kind of get more angry out of it, that's when this thing takes over. Because in this episode, Metal Lee, when he was just like completely down and out because Shikadai told him off, which by the way, I was like, it shows that Shikadai has a lot of room to grow. While he is kind of like his father, he also has a ways to go as well, when he was just like talking shit to Metal Lee, like, yo, stop getting nervous, what are you doing? And Metal Lee came back, and he was just completely with that black chakra around him that Boruto could see with his eye. And it's like, I'm assuming that that's the thing about it, is if they get really depressed or they feel like everything is hopeless, that's when it can take over. Again, no idea other than Orochimaru, because we saw it look like snake bites, who could be responsible for this, why Orochimaru would be doing this to begin with. A lot of questions there, but you could definitely say that that's probably the catalyst to what makes them actually turn into this evil or asshole-ish ways. Because, yo, Metal Lee, when he was in that shit, let's talk real quickly about his training, because this dude is insane. When he was fucking, he almost killed Shikadai, and then Shikadai, Boruto, and Inoji, all three of them were running for their lives. Shikadai had to use some credible strategy, which, good shit there. It seems as though Shikadai is way ahead of Boruto in skill and strategy and all that shit, because he was able to pinpoint this dude down. He used a plan, and of course Boruto went along with it, and that's how they were able to make Metal Lee stop. But yeah, Shikadai in a class of his own as far as being able to use strategy already in the academy, and they're pretty fairly early on in there. Boruto, long way to go. I mean, he was partially responsible in a way for what happened to the Hokage mountain, but Metal Lee, like, I'm really curious what gate that was that he was opening. Obviously not the 8th gate, but that dude was at least like maybe 3 to 5 gates, something like that, to the point where Shikadai was even not able to hold him almost, and they had to fucking like try anything they can to stop him, which it kind of made me think, what was it that snapped him out? Because what was it that snapped Denki out of that whole black chakra thing? Because Metal Lee, it was like he was going so mad to the point where eventually he just maybe exhausted his energy. Maybe when the chakra gets too low, maybe him using like the gates technique was like just draining his chakra, so it completely evaporated out of him, because it softened up on him for a second, enough for him to just kind of be goofy, and then it completely went away. So I'm kind of curious what breaks them out of this to begin with. And I'm imagining one of the characters that we actually really know about is going to be affected by this at some given point, maybe within the first 6 episodes, maybe a little bit more. Kind of curious how far they're going to stretch this thing. We also got to see a little bit more, which I really wasn't interested that much, to be honest with you. It was like, whatever, with the class rep that has the purple hair. It was a little bit more exploring her character. She seems like she could be the new Hinata, or she could potentially just be like seemingly Hinata and have a really nice twist where it's like, yeah, she kind of looks like Hinata, but she's really a bitch or something like that inside of her head. So they could play around with a couple different things with her there, but I personally wasn't all that excited about her. I was more so excited about seeing Metal Lee, his techniques and all that cool shit. His quirk was kind of like whatever. Seeing Shikadai, seeing the scene with Shikadai and his parents, which I think with series like this that are kind of like, you know, all based off many years of material, whenever you get the parents involved, it's always a nice treat. Even though it was just a small scene, I was like, when Tamari walks in there and Shikamaru's in there, and then she's even screaming at Shikamaru and Shikadai, and she's like, yo, no dinner, motherfucker. Yeah, and you better suck your own dick. Okay, she didn't say that last part, but that would have been funny as fuck. And last but not least, to talk a little bit more regarding the eye, or Boruto's eye. Towards the end of the episode, Boruto even went to his mom and was kind of just briefly trying to get an idea about the Byakugan, so maybe he can understand, well, maybe it's that I'm unlocking a Byakugan. Like, that scene was really interesting as well, because like, while we have the small scenes and the small kind of internal within the episode stories where like, okay, this episode was dealing with Metal Lee and finding out more about him and whatnot, you have the overall arcing stuff where basically Boruto, why does he have this power? Why is this chakra taking over people and making them do bad things? It's like, there's many questions there, but I'm kind of curious exactly, like, is that a Tensagon? It seems as though that's the same eye that Toneri Otsutsuki had in Naruto the Last. Maybe it's slightly different because it's seen different things, but it is interesting. And you see Boruto even looking at Himawari's eyes like, yo, does she have it? What's going on there? I mean, you gotta think for a second. If Hinata has the Byakugan, obviously Naruto doesn't have any eye technique. He's from the Uzumaki clan, a little bit different there. But you gotta think, there's a possibility for a mutation. Maybe that's why they have normal blue eyes, Boruto and Himawari, but eventually they'll be able to unlock it. Maybe that's why he's getting this power now. Maybe it could have something to do with Toneri Otsutsuki to begin with, because because there was a point, I forget if it was Hinata or her sister or both of them, or maybe they lost their eyes, I can't remember, but maybe there's some sort of connection there. That would be sick as fuck. If they connect this to the last Naruto the movie, I would like that, but only time will tell. But overall, this episode, it was okay. I like that it's exploring little things more. I really wish we would have get more of Metal Lee's backstory and his parents and whatnot. Also, the class rep, it was kind of like, she exists, but until we get more of her, it's kind of like a wannabe Hinata clone, and she's not even related to any of the characters. But it was nice again to see more of Shikadai, his family, and exploring a little bit more of what's going on with Boruto's eye and this black chakra thingy that's seemingly taking control of people when they fall into depravity. Kind of curious what you thought about this episode though. Favorite scene? What did you think about Shikadai with Shikamaru and Tamari? How did you feel about Metal Lee going at it with Shikadai and Boruto? And who do you think was the star of this episode? Personally, I think it was Shikadai. Even though Metal Lee, this was mainly supposed to be focusing on him, I think Shikadai, seeing him feel remorse for being mean to Metal Lee, seeing the little scene with his family, and I guess to a certain degree, secondary will probably be Boruto as well because of his eye and kind of seeing this chakra and kind of getting a little bit more intriguing on what the fuck is going on here. And your overall thoughts of the episode? I personally would say score-wise, I want to say it's between 6.5 to a 7. It was a decent episode, but I'm a little bit disappointed regarding like, yo, let's get more about Metal Lee. Where's his parents? What's going on there? But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.